Order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good morning. Consideration of agenda items. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I have a correction.
Okay.
Requesting to have item 8, Health and Human Services, removed from the agenda.
Okay. And then under F, under the consent agenda, I have the dimensions of that building as 50 by 80 by 16. We'll add that to that part of it. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Szymanski. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
on the consent agenda, item G, the dimensions of that building in the lower right corner of the agenda, I don't believe it's a 10 by 70, but I don't know if anyone can clarify
Can you help
that.
us out, Mark, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's
That
gotta
is
be
a
40
typo.
by 70.
Pardon me?
It's got to be a 40 by 70.
That is a 40 by 70. Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, with that correction, I would ask for whatever.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No warrants today. So we're on to Mid-Minnesota Development Commission. Mr. Johnson, good morning. Good morning. The mics, just do me a favor, and you got to be pretty
Close?
Yep.
Sounds good. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here today to talk about the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission working on the Regional Transportation Coordination Council. I'm going to start off by saying hindsight's 2020. A year and a half ago when we started this process, the state of Minnesota with the Department of Transportation and Department of Human Services, they were awarded us a grant referred to as Phase 1 to establish, lay the foundation to establish a new board that would deal with regional transportation issues. After visiting the different county boards and discussing things with all the key stakeholders, loud and clear we heard that they did not want a new board to be formed. And as a result, fast forwarded to 4 months ago, we revised, when we created the Phase 2 operational work plan, we took it to the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission, the 21 commissioners there, and presented roping the responsibilities of the Regional Transportation Coordination Council into the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission. So it would be, we already have our 21 commissioners, there would be no new board established. We created a subcommittee of our 21 commissioners consisting of 5 board members that will be devoted to all things Regional Transportation Coordination Council. And then we created an advisory council, which consists of the public and private providers, human service agencies, Minnesota Board on Aging. It has some representation. We have veteran service officers that are participating. We have members of people with transportation disabilities, particularly people that use public transit predominantly with varying different disabilities. And so I feel like this project a year and a half ago when MnDOT charged us to work on a Regional Transportation Coordination Council, that had been in development through the state over the last 20 years. My office had been involved with writing the Human Service Transit Coordination Plan every 5 years. There wasn't anybody to do that. With all credit to Trailblazer Transit, they absolutely picked up a lot of the important things and did that themselves. I just want to emphasize that the state of Minnesota with MnDOT and the Department of Human Services, they have acknowledged that the transportation issues regionally go beyond public transit. That's why they have the private providers at the table. The non-emergency medical transportation costs have skyrocketed. And the overall goal here for the Regional Transportation Coordination Council is to help sort through the public, private, and all the different programs. There's 100 different programs throughout the country that people are eligible to help pay for their transportation services, which I think is completely ridiculous. I don't know how anybody could ever understand all the different programs. And part of this initiative for Phase 2, we can break it down into 4 categories. The first thing simply creates a resource guide of what the transportation services are out there, what programs we have in our 4-county area, and we're going to be producing a transportation resource guide. So it's going to try to summarize the transportation services in our region. The second initiative is a top-down initiative. The volunteer driver program has taken a huge hit. Trailblazer Transit sunsetted. Other public providers have kept their volunteer driver program. But right now we're trying to work with the key stakeholders to make sure that volunteer drivers are compensated properly. The IRS has indicated that they can only be reimbursed at the 14 cents per mile volunteer rate versus a 59-cent per mile business rate. So that has dropped a lot of the volunteer programs. It's kind of the heart of why Trailblazer Transit said we can no longer have it. So the Volunteer Driver Committee is the second initiative. The third initiative is a gaps analysis. So where our public and private providers can go, where they don't go. Obviously, we have some territorial boundaries where if somebody wants to get up to St. Cloud from this area or down to New Ulm or the Mankato area, there are limitations through public transit. Private providers, of course, are very expensive, so we're trying to coordinate on where the gaps are. Another form of gap, the major employers have communicated loud and clear that transportation needs is a huge obstacle to them filling their employment. People either can't afford it or they have, the major employers are really having a tough time in some sectors of getting people where they need to be. So there's another category there. The gaps analysis will analyze what we're doing right, what we could improve on, take a look at things like vehicle sharing, ride sharing, all those different type of programs to try to get people where they need to be. The fourth initiative is unique to our region. We looked at having a transportation ambassador learn not to drive program. The Minnesota Board on Aging has been interested in participating with us on developing a program so that people are comfortable not using their own private vehicle for a variety of different reasons. Either predominantly the main target area would be for seniors that I've told the story before about my mom parked her car in her garage for 7 years as she went progressively legally blind and paid for her insurance and so forth. She was low income, and so helping people like that learn that public transit is an option for them, and that there are other hopefully volunteer drivers and other the non-emergency medical private transportation providers that could help people like that. So those are the 4 initiatives. The Transportation Resource Guide on what we have and what we don't have, the Volunteer Driver Program Committee, the gaps analysis, and then the Learn Not to Drive program. That is simply as what we're referring to as Phase 2. That's the next, this fiscal year's worth of work to work on those initiatives. The good news is the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission roped it in to their responsibilities. Rather than having a new board created, MnDOT paid for 100% of this due to the fact that it's under the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission umbrella. I don't anticipate coming to the board in the future to ask for cost share for any of these activities. I believe that we can sustain this project. MnDOT and the Department of Human Services are committed to this for a 5-year program. And I'm hoping that people are excited about this, and that I would like to think that people could look at the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission and be happy that we're taking this on. There's lots to do in transportation. I know that just in quotes, simply trying to pull off public transit with your neighboring counties is a very challenging thing. This does not interfere with your public transit program in any way. It's not taking funds away. It's not competing with public transit funds. There are things like if we can help with the volunteer drivers initiative, that we can supplement what you're doing here for public transit. So I do have a resolution. The Mid-Minnesota Development Commission covered the initiative moving forward for Phase 2. We thought it would be a good idea, since we were initially looking for full county board support, to come back and say, this is our work plan. We would like you to support what we're doing. We look forward to working with you on as things adapt moving forward. And I thought it would just be good business to give you the update and have you know what we're working on for Phase 2.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask a couple of questions? One is, this is Phase 2. Do you anticipate several more phases, or what's the future looking like?
The future says is MnDOT, this would be year 2 of it. MnDOT's looking at the first 5 years for sure. Then they're going to reevaluate it. I'm hoping that that gives us plenty of time to show a lot of good. I want to show a lot of good during Phase 2. If we get that resource guide done, make some progress on the volunteer driver, do a thorough gaps analysis of what we're doing right, what we could improve on, and establish that program to help especially seniors learn not to drive, that there are other options out there. I'm hoping that people are going to start seeing us being successful at what we want to do.
Okay. Matt, I want to congratulate you on, you said one key phrase that's really been close to my concern for years, is that Minnesota Department of Transportation and the Department of Human Services are working together finally.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That has been a struggle for years to try and get the coordination of the medical transportation.
We've made progress from them not looking at each other in the same room to at least occasionally looking at each other in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mess. It is absolutely a mess. As you know, Ron, MnDOT takes care of public transit, all things public transit. Department of Human Services really has the gigantic pile of money to deal with things like non-emergency medical transport. There's no coordination there. So that's another reason why we're trying to work together. There's almost full statewide coverage. There's a few areas that are in the Phase 1 planning stage now. Sibley County has been along for the ride. I went to them before this county board. They're waiting to hear what your answer is on this Phase 2 work program. Nice board down there. They're optimistic about it, but they don't want to do anything without McLeod County.
Sure. Matt, if I may ask you, because Sibley County is outside of the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission area, but they're kind of paired in with us in this process.
Yes, and so the good news is there were no match required, so we didn't have to think about if we did go to the counties on how that would be fair, because the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission probably could have provided the match for Meeker, McLeod, Candido, and Renville County, but in theory, we wouldn't have been able to cover Sibley County. So the fact that there isn't a match is a nice thing for Sibley County. We extended the offer to Sibley County, pure and simple, because of Trailblazer Transit. At the beginning of the phase, we were told, whether it was right or wrong, that Wright County was looking at cooperating with St. Cloud. Now, I'm going to tell you, the only way these regional development commissions are going to be successful is if we're working with all our neighbors. I mean, transportation doesn't end at the county borders.
True.
So at this point, Sibley County's been very successfully come along for the ride. They've had a lot to contribute. They've been very positive about this. Their new county administrator, John, was their human service director for years. He was at the table helping put this together. And I can tell you that in order to be successful, we're going to have to work with Stearns County and Wright County and the surrounding other counties in order to pull this off. And we will. I think as things move forward, if it comes to the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission providing a cost share in the future, it's probably going to revert back to our 4 original counties. Mankato is in Phase 1 right now. They want Sibley County to participate with them and so they can stay together as a region.
Sure.
But Sibley County seems like they're going to be part of both initiatives, and it's a win-win for them as a result.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Matt, is that Mankato or is it Blue Earth County?
It's the MPO down there.
Because I've heard I mean, my problem here is I'm involved with this and I don't get it. I mean, I don't even know what Phase 1 really did. I don't
Phase-
know that it's even done yet. And I've obviously been, I know there's several of these programs through the state that the DOT is funding. And then, I mean, you had said it was 100% financed by DOT, but you don't anticipate any cost share. But obviously, we always have to get the blessings of the county boards, and that, to me, links us to a cost share if it ever arises. So I have problems with that. But I know that I talked to Sibley County, and they're as confused as I am.
Right.
I mean, they're getting pulled around. I've done some work, state DHS. I mean, there's some things going on behind the scenes. I know they're collecting data
Right.
through all these programs, and they're trying to require people to ride transit. Rather than they're not going to fund private carriers, or that's what they're looking at, and deciding to have their client, if you will, to have to wait for a period of 2 to 3 hours. That's all tied into this, and I'm getting calls that they don't want to do that. I mean,
Absolutely.
they want to get a ride now, and they want to get to their doctor. They don't want to reschedule 3 weeks out. They don't want to wait 3 hours at their doctor's. And I know this is all tied into this deal. And and all crossing all these regions, while I understand it makes it better, but for me, it also makes it more complicated because we all have different needs.
Okay, Commissioner Kruger, you're right about almost everything you said there from the standpoint that it is confusing. And part of the confusion stems from what we started to do a year and a half ago versus what we ended up doing. So Phase 1 simply said, we met with the stakeholders, we had the continuation of the local human service transit group meet to discuss what was needed, and we produced what our work plan would be. Other regions are doing other things. This is what we came up with as a region. And part of the confusion that's out there, especially from the citizen standpoint, is exactly why this is needed. Public transit and the private providers and all the red tape that follows human services cannot be cut through by the average person. And we need to come up with the education of what transportation options are available, what programs people might be eligible for. Veteran services, for the most part, has been very positive about that. They play a huge role there, but your veteran service officer said sometimes they can't always answer the phone. And so having another voice out there to say, if you're a veteran, this is what McLeod County Veteran Services can do for you, is a win-win scenario. If it's just left up to each individual silo to take care of all these issues, that's why we're failing.
And I agree with that. Matt, Sheila, do we have any meeting with Sibley County on the books at all for this fall? Have we set that up?
No, we do not.
So typically, we meet with them in the fall. Maybe it would be a good idea, since they're waiting on us and, to do that. Maybe this would be a good thing that we should discuss together in a workshop and go from there. I don't know what everybody else feels like, but, we could go from there and get some more of those questions answered in a
Commissioner
workshop.
Nagle, due to the fact that that is absolutely fine. We can have that joint workshop, and you can invite Wright County at that time if you want. That is perfectly fine. I just want to emphasize to everybody, rather than create a new board, the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission voted to do this Phase 2. So we want your support. We want you to have the feedback. We also, most importantly, want you to participate. The Human Service Director has been at the table. Public Transit has been at the table. We asked Commissioner Kruger to sit on our subcommittee, and he's committed on a number of other efforts. But this is a huge deal for this region. If we can get the medical communities to get the cost of no-shows to the medical community is huge. The economic development ramifications. My dad is 83 years old, and he's scared to use public transit. So if we can help people get on that bus for the first time, this is going to be a win-win thing for everybody.
I think so too. I think we just got to sit down and maybe talk about it a little bit more, in that workshop type setting. So, is there any other questions for Matt?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a question for you. Would we invite Mr. Magnuson
I
to
think
join
that would
us in
be,
that
I think that'd be
workshop?
vital to the operation. So,
But as I read the whole program, I said I really would like to discuss this in a workshop as well. So
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
Sounds good.
So we won't take any action on this, but Sheila, Liz, we need to do that anyway, see if we can set something up with Sibley County and then Matt.
Yes, we
Bring
will.
that- All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Information technology.
Information technology, item A. Matt Tresca is here to answer any questions about this item. We're asking for you to consider approval to purchase 31 desktop computers and 11 laptop computers for various county departments from the state contract quote from SHI for a cost of $44,468.12 with funds from the information technology budget. This is requested as part of the 4-year rotation schedule. The computers being replaced are 4 years old or older.
All right, any questions? Matt is here, if we have any. Pretty straightforward.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the approval of the purchase of 31 desktop computers and 11 laptop computers.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski, is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Auditor Treasurer. Good
Good
morning.
morning, everyone.
Morning.
Today I am here to provide you with copies of the annual disclosures for 2018 of the TIF districts. They were included in your packet. There was one I noticed late last night that was not included, and that will be put in the packet after the meeting so that anyone looking forward will be able to see that.
Okay. Any action you need from us regarding this?
Nope, no action at all. It's just to provide you with the copies pursuant to 469.175 subdivision 5.
All right. All right. Any questions for Connie? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Environmental Services. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, everyone. We do have one item this morning. It is to consider approval of a conditional use permit, 19-15, submitted by Renesola Power for the purpose of a 1 megawatt community solar garden to be known as Lester Prairie CSG1 LLC on property owned by Brenda Torbla. This property is located in the northeast quarter of Section 32 in Winstead Township. The Winstead Township Board recommended denial at their July 11th, 2019 meeting, and the McLeod County Planning Commission heard this and recommended denial at their July 24th, 2019 meeting with the following findings. Number one, due to the close proximity of existing neighboring feedlots, there was concerns with stray voltage. Number two, existing housing in the immediate area. There's a large subdivision to the north and east of this particular request. And also the ground is considered to be prime farmland per the NRCS's definition of prime farmland. So with that being said, do not see Renesola present today. There is a request, and we have had a denial and a denial. So if there's any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
So the last time that this site came up was a few years ago, and it was recommended to approve, but I remember that meeting. Where we
high school, right?
It was at the high school, yep. We spent a lot of time talking about, the stray voltage issue, and we had a lot of, feedback from the company at that time that they would do a lot of testing and make sure that that was not a concern, focusing on the two livestock operations that are very, very close to this property. Since that time, we've had a lot of applications, and it is, for me, that the stray voltage topic, as a livestock farmer myself, that is becoming more and more of a concern as we look at these applications. Both feedlot operations, the Krinky Dairy and the Snegowski's swine operation, we need to see those as very valuable parts of our economy here in McLeod County, as we've spent more time looking at economic development within the county within the last year. And I think that we need to start taking steps to preserve them. The stray voltage is something that we don't hear a lot of as far as its relation to people, But the livestock industry knows this topic very, very well as something that can create enormous death loss, reduction in rate of gain, and some huge problems in herd health. As a matter of fact, this summer, one of the state's leading registered dairy herds just got dragged through the courts while they were indicating these issues damaging their livestock while they were trying to prove it to stray voltage. Not related to solar by any means, but it is a stray voltage issue that causes huge, huge concerns within that livestock industry. And with the number of applications that we seem to have coming before us, I think it's okay to start kind of picking and choosing where it's a good idea and where it's maybe not such a great idea for these sites to be located. And so I think that denying this request at this time, seeing the reasons that the Planning Commission has come up with, for me, it is definitely the feedlots and protecting our valuable family farms out there that are out there. As a matter of fact, the Crinkies will have one of their daughter up for Princess Kay of the Milky Way up in a couple nights. One of the two ladies from McLeod County that'll be up for that honor. So I think with that and my interest in the agricultural impression here, that I'll make that motion to deny the request.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, second by Commissioner Kruger to deny the request. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I agreed with everything Commissioner Wright said, but in addition, I think, if we're going to accept everyone, we don't need a board. I mean, I think we have, it's our due diligence to pick and choose, and not only that, but I mean, we have a board, the Planning Commission and the townships, and I think it's our duty to listen to what they have to say too, so.
I agree. Anything else?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And I would also, commend the Planning and Zoning Commission that, they looked at this and they've, been responsive to the concerns of Winston Town Board and the residents of the area. And I think it's only appropriate that this project is really not a good fit for this parcel of land. And so I do appreciate the efforts on all concerned that this is a good idea, but probably not the right place for it. So, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll weigh in also. I sit on the Planning Commission board, and every one of the issues that was brought up now was brought up at the Planning Commission board with a lot of the exact same feelings. So that is why it's here today, and I'm supporting of denying this operation.
All right. We'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Right on time.
All right, Health and Human Services, that item's been pulled. County Attorney's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I received an email last week from Clark Schroeder, one of our candidates for the administrator position, and he informed me that he was withdrawing because he'd accepted a position with Ashland County, Wisconsin. The other thing that I have to report is that the background checks have been substantially completed, and by that I mean the only part that is not yet completed is the fingerprinting part. And what that is intended to do is make sure that the people are who they actually say they are. And I'm confident that both of those individuals that are remaining have previously gone through that since they were employed by McLeod and Sibley counties. Thank you.
So the question is, Mike, if we can take action, I'll say personally, I'm ready to take action on the administrator position. Can we take that action today, or do we need to wait till September like was previously stated?
It is your call. I informed all of the department heads last week that if they had input, that they ought to provide that prior to today.
Prior to today. Okay. All right, what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Being I sat on this process, I'd just like to say we had a lot of good candidates, and I think in the situation, well, not the situation, just the way things progressed, I think I would like to see Administrator seated, and I have a lot of notes here, but I'm just going to, I'm going to move to direct the chair and the county attorney to enter into a contract with Sheila Murphy and appoint her McLeod County Administrator. The compensation shall be within the current pay structure of the county's pay plans. And that pretty much sums up my motion.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger. Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to go on to some of my other notes. I think that this board, we have been in a process of trying to strengthen our administrative department, if you will, and trying to work on efficiencies and accountabilities, and I believe this person fits into that structure. She's been with us, I guess, now almost 2 years, and in a deputy administrator, HR director position. And I just feel that that the way she's handled herself in that time, not that that's the only thing, but I just think it rises to the qualification of an administrator.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I will have to add something here. The last time we met, we made a statement that we would not be making a decision until the first meeting in September. And I feel that we need to stay within that notification and not jump ahead. I am by no means saying that the outcome is going to be any different. With 2 left in the pool, I think that there's a decision that can be made. However, we did state that we would be making that motion at that time, and there might be some people that have some differing. I mean, I think we've all been getting some information, and it's like I said, it's probably not going to alter the end of the topic at all as far as who will be selected. But we did state that it was going to be in that first meeting in September, and I wish we would wait that long.
Mr. Chair, I guess I would.
Rich?
I would echo Paul's statement. I'm a little surprised that we had one candidate withdraw. I just think whether we do this today or in 2 weeks gives us a little more time to make sure that everything is exactly as we think it is. I've gotten a couple comments from a few department heads, and I guess I would just like to be able to weigh all those comments without having to rush a decision today that I wasn't really planning on making today. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Ron?
Our interim administrator has done a wonderful job, and I appreciate it. And I will agree with Commissioner Wright and Commissioner Polmeyer that our public statement previously was that we would make the final determination at our first September meeting, and I would agree that I think we can wait. I don't think it's going to change any of the results, but I think for the public perception that we rushed a judgment, I don't think is necessary. We have the time, we have the people in place doing a terrific job, and I think just to provide confidence in our decision for the constituents of McLeod County, I would support waiting until our September meeting to make the appointment.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
With all that said, I guess I don't have a problem either waiting till September. It's just, I mean, we have so much going on. I just wanted, it was being one candidate dropped out. for me, it's an easy decision that maybe, because I'm so involved in the process, maybe for the rest of the board, it's not, and I don't just know how to, that's my comment. I wouldn't have a problem waiting until September to our
You
next
have,
meeting.
And
Mr.
somebody's
Chair,
gotta-
you
Go ahead,
have two options. One is to vote with the motion that is on the table. The second is for somebody to make a motion to table until September 2nd.
Well, that tabling motion would override the other
It would
motion?
just table the motion till,
Then I will make, as being I made the first motion, I'll make the second motion to table it till our next meeting.
Second?
motion by Commissioner Kruger, second by Commissioner Szymanski. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, review of the calendars. Rich?
Okay, since last meeting, had attended the workshop, some good discussion there. Had an emergency pack for families meeting to approve a gentleman to the Family Board of Directors, Executive Committee there. Spent a number of days the last week at the county fair. Had a lot of good discussion with constituents and everyone else in the county, and I'd like to applaud the County Ag Association for having a very good fair, and we just, as a vendor in the fair also, we'd like to figure out ways to even get more people at the fair and make it even better yet. So, thank you.
Okay, last week, meeting with multiple ditch systems, 18, 17, 32, and a Sibley County ditch of 65, all met. We needed to, after 3 hours of discussion, we needed to recess for a couple weeks to gather more information before we could make a decision. So, but it is a very significant change in those systems, so I guess we'll just keep plugging away with that one. Highway Department meeting on some updated projects, and then also the county fair, big deal for our family. We have an awful lot of livestock and 4-H projects there, and obviously a time to talk with an awful lot of people. And over the next couple of days, we'll be moving on a lot of our 4-H program projects down to the state fair. So those who are going to the state fair, take a look up in the 4-H building for projects. If you're going through the livestock barns, there is an awful lot of livestock that'll be heading down tomorrow. And I'll be going down both today and tomorrow to help all those kids set up. So it's that 4-H program is a tremendous value to McLeod County, as we've had many statements of support come across this board in the past. And so just looking for the community to find those kids when they're down there and tell them congratulations.
At our workshop, also, we had the final round of administrator interviews that day afterwards. Had a community health board meeting, more of a finance team meeting with that. I got asked to sit on a panel regarding the Hutchinson Center for the Arts, believe it or not. But it was really surrounding kind of what they do, and it was the county and the county government and the Center for the Arts, or the Public Arts Commission, probably don't have a lot that jive together. However, it was interesting to hear how they're trying to be a part of the economic development of the county for that with their projects. So that was kind of something that I learned that maybe wasn't thinking about. Department head meeting, we met with one of the bargaining units for union negotiations and had a Trailblazer meeting where the main focus was that the Trailblazer board decided that they would be independent in their insurance, or at least away from the Sibley McLeod group, and they're going to proceed on their own. And I think we have a workshop regarding our insurance in just a few minutes. Ron?
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You had mentioned the CHS Finance Committee. I did sit in on that for a few minutes, just helping the committee keep up with their work. But I left as soon as Commissioner Nagel arrived because he was the sitting member of that committee. On the 14th, I did some ditch work with our SWCD ditch inspector. We went out and visited a couple of farms in the Winstead Township, Bergen Township area, and talked about doing some tree removal, some substantial tree removal on County Ditch 32. On the 15th, we had negotiation sessions with the LELS bargaining unit. That was going very well. This was an initial meeting, but I think we are looking forward to some really commendable negotiations in the coming months. Also, would like to mention that my father passed away on the morning of April 15th, and I thank all of the constituents and county board members and staff for their condolences. Later on the 15th, I attended the Pioneer Land Library System Finance and Executive Committee up in Wilmer. Things are going good up there. On the 18th was the only day I was able to get to the county fair. Very, very nice fair, very well attended for the entertainment that I observed that evening. And then yesterday on the 19th, the McLeod Sibley Trailblazer Health Insurance Committee got together and kind of finalized some of our decisions, talked about future changes in our joint powers agreements and so forth regarding our health insurance plan. I look forward to bringing that up at the workshop and explaining the benefits of the change in the system that we're anticipating for 2020. And that is it, Mr. Chair.
All right, Doug?
All right, I also attended the workshop after our last meeting and our interviews with our finalists and administrator candidates. I also visited this last week with landowners along County Road 3. They have some issues with some seeding, and we went through them. And I then actually went up and checked, as long as I was out there, I checked on 15 on how the construction went and what's left to be done. I also attended the ditch meetings that Commissioner Wright alluded to, and obviously we have more work to do there in a couple of weeks. I had the department head meeting on the 13th and Trailblazer on the 15th. And the thing I'd like to comment on is I also worked at the fair. It's something it's always been near and dear to my heart, and I do it on my own time. We worked with our Veterans Day on our free day on Thursday, and then I've been working to have colors presented in front of the grandstand shows, and as our veterans are getting older and it's harder to get color guards to present colors, I worked with our 4-H department. And we had 2 nights, we had the 4-H kids present colors in front of the grandstand on horseback. And with a little work with getting flags, it went out real well. We only had about 10 days to get it all put together. The kids didn't have much time to do any practice. And when you have motocross, there's so much debris out there that they had to work around it, but it went real well, so I'm pretty proud of our fair and our 4-H kids for helping me out. That brings us to today.
All right, Sheila, anything to add?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll move on to administrative items. Go ahead.
Item A, asking for you to consider approval of a request by Cynthia and Jorge Ruiz for a 30-day extension to September 14th for removal of the garage structure at 611 DeSoto Avenue in Glencoe. Noted that the extension was requested due to the timing of the required permitting being received from the city. That permit has been received now since this agenda was written and the work is in progress. And upon consulting with our facilities manager and Contegrity, the approval would not cause any delays in the project.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, asking for you to consider approval of request by Chris and Amy Liskey for a 30-day extension to September 14th for removal of the home at 1214 Morningside Avenue in Glencoe. This, once we were notified that the project was delayed, I talked to this couple and let them know that if they were having issues still getting the moving company scheduled, that it would more than likely not be an issue to ask for an extension.
All right.
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer,
Second?
Second by Commissioner Szymanski, and we were intentionally aggressive with the original stipulations, knowing that some extensions may need to happen, so that's, I think this is within line of that. So, any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in line with that, at Morningside, we were aggressive because we thought we were going to start construction this year, so without construction starting this year, it's not a problem.
Yep. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item C, notification of Minnesota Counties Intergovernmental Trust, MCIT, 2019 dividend of $78,361 for workers' compensation and $26,048 for property and casual, for a total of $104,409 to McLeod County. MCIT's ability to provide dividends reflects positive investment income, members' dedication to risk management and loss control, net income from conservative fiscal program management, and claims development by each division.
All right, any questions? Otherwise, we can move on.
Thank you. Item D, this is the Personnel Committee request that was tabled at, I'm sorry, I believe at our August 6th meeting. This is being removed from, I'm sorry.
Isn't D E is the one that you...
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, okay.
So
Thank
D we
you.
need to take action on, maybe?
I apologize. Item D is different, thank you. Donna Burke is here for questions if there are about item D. Consider the Personnel Committee recommendation to approve Social Services Department contracting out for case management services upon the occurrence of conflict of interest or contracting for a service that we do not have available.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would request that Donna come and give us just a brief explanation of what type of occurrences these could be that we would have and is there outside service readily available?
Yes, they are. And there's actually more than that as a reason to contact.
Donna, we can't hear you unless you talk directly into the mics.
Okay,
I
can
know
you hear me? Okay, sorry. Right now, we have a current situation where we have a case manager with a child who is on one of our waivers. We've tried to get surrounding counties to take that for us. We often do courtesy case management. Everyone around us refused because they also know this person.
Okay.
We also have some individuals who live quite a distance away, and some who don't necessarily want McLeod County to be their case manager. So those might be situations too where we'd want to do that. The feds and the Department of Human Services are pushing because they really need individuals to have a choice of providers. And right now, their choice of providers for case management here is McLeod County. And when they say a choice, they don't mean just a different case manager in McLeod County. They mean a different provider. So that would be another reason why we'd want to start being able to contract for case management. A lot of counties do that across the state. Hennepin County, Ramsey County, those metro areas do it a lot. So Hennepin County basically contracts out almost all of their case management, and then they hire assessors to do the assessments. But in the rural counties, it's a lot different. There's just here and there, they have 1 or 2 or 3 people who contract out. Most people are choosing in the rural areas the county to still be their case manager.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Donna, would the final decision or determination be made in the McLeod County Social Services Department, or does DHS have some play in who?
DHS is pushing it. So at our last 2 waiver reviews, it hasn't been a finding for them, but they always mention it. You need to find other ways to get case management for people. You need to contract out.
All right. But on a case-by-case basis,
Yes.
the decisions are made here in McLeod County when to contract out.
We would make a proposal because any individual contract with a provider would come here. So there's a number of providers in this state. Those specific contracts would come here for approval.
Okay. To the county board for
Yes.
approval? Okay.
Now, there's certain circumstances, if you want them to, could, but say we contract with Meridian, which is a provider in the metro area. We could have 1 or 2 or 3 people maybe choose them then as their case manager. So if you wanted to know those situations individually for clients, we could bring that basic information to you without sharing names and stuff. But otherwise, it would be the contract that you approve with Meridian.
Okay.
And we could put limits on that,
All right.
you know, up to so many people.
Thank you, Donna. That was my next question is, who controls the cost of the contract? And that would, again, be
Right
specified
now,
in the
it's,
contract
the
and approved
county
here.
does. I happen to be on a state group working on case management rates right now in a very specific way. But I do know part of the reason for this is that CMS, the feds, are not happy with how DHS monitors or oversees the contracting rate for case management, because counties do it all individually, and there really is no oversight. They just are notified of what the rate is. So there will be a point, I believe, that the rate will be a given. And there's a lot of other changes that are happening in case management, a whole reform, which might eventually mean that case management providers could just enroll with the state and not even go through the county for a contract, but just be like another provider that someone would choose.
Okay. All
So
right.
what you're
Thank
looking
you,
for
Donna.
today is our approval to go out and investigate potential partners that you could farm some cases out to if you needed to, right? And then you'll bring back the contract that's actually in
Yes,
play.
yeah. We
Right.
don't have anything pulled together. DHS has a model contract that we would use as a basis, but we need to review that and determine a rate and, yeah. It'll-
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Commissioner Samaski pretty much covered it, but I still don't, there's a couple things I don't quite understand. I get the whole thing, conflict of interest. And I don't know how many of the outside firms have trouble staffing too, so I don't know how far back they are and how available they are. But I guess my main question is it needs to meet a criteria of a conflict of interest before you would trigger, and that would be my only, you can't just, a client can't just ask for a different worker. I mean, doesn't there have to be a real conflict of interest before it qualifies to go outside? That would be my question.
That would be your determination about how we want that contract right now to read, but eventually, I do believe it is just going to be a choice. That's what CMS wants, that's what the Department of Human Services wants.
So if that is a choice, then I mean, that all has to be entwined with our number of our, I mean, if we're going to go outside with quite a few, then, we have to look at our staffing concerns then too. And I mean, I'm not insinuating anything, I'm just looking for a balance. I kind of get it because I read this as strictly a conflict of interest, and I get that. But other than that's another conversation, and I don't know, I'd like a criteria because I don't know that I don't know if it's good for a client or whatever to have every case brought to the board. I mean, with or without names,
Right.
I can see that being not so comfortable.
Well, I really think you need to go out, figure out what services are out there, what it's gonna cost, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
come back and either here at a workshop, present the contract so we better understand what it's going, and keep in mind the things you just heard.
And
Right.
Mr. Chair, one final thing. I have talked to other counties. They're using them. I mean, I get that, but it's kind of new. I don't know where the criteria to trigger that is or how. I need to actually do a little more research on that too, but
Okay.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Can I add a comment, please?
Thank you.
Finishing what this says, this is a common practice of neighboring counties when issues regarding conflict of interest or availability of case management services arises. I understand the concern of what that contract looks like, but we need to remember the timing of the services that they're providing, and for them to be able to come, make a board request, come to a board meeting, have that approved, and provide the services in a time of need may be difficult, so I would like to make sure that that's considered when you're reviewing the topic.
Yeah, all good points. I just want to get you the tools you need right now, which would be allowing you to go negotiate the contract and come back. Is it that simple, right?
This allows you to take the next step.
Yep. All right.
All right, move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kruger. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item E, I apologize, this is the one I was talking about before that was tabled at our July 16th county board meeting, where it was asked to consider approval of a personnel committee recommendation for a temporary reduction in hours for a public health employee for a temporary education leave. However, after further review, we recognize that this does not fall within the parameters of our education leave and that we would like to just remove the request.
So, no action, just needs to be removed. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Item E, item F, notification of McLeod County Workshop to be held on September 3rd, 2019, following the county board meeting at the Glencoe City Center.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Open forum. Anyone from the audience wish to address the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before we adjourn, I do have one thing. I have, sometimes there's a problems for me because of open meeting, open meeting laws. We're not allowed, I'm going back to our motion with the administrator thing, but not that specifically. There's a lot of topics that the public would like to see us make decisions on, and they don't quite understand that we can only talk to one other commissioner. And so that makes it really difficult, and I see it sometimes. This is one of the cases where you just really can't talk about it, and I don't think the public always has it can be ditches, it can be roads, it can be anything, and that really ties our hands. You can talk to one commissioner, and unless Mr. Young corrects me, that's pretty much the limit of an open meeting violation, and that makes it tough for us to communicate back outside of a workshop setting. And I've had people talk to me about all our workshops. That has made our jobs, I wouldn't say easier, but more comfortable for me in the workshop settings to discuss some of these things. But it's just a comment I have. It's the perception of some of the constituency is that, well, why don't you do this? Well, I just noticed in our conversation that, there's two of us that know a little bit more than the other three, and that happens. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Press relations, anything? All right, looking for a motion to recess till September 3rd, 2019 at 9 a.m. at the Glencoe City Center.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.